Big tanks, little tanks. We're going to be talking about why you would use big tanks. It's coming right up. If you get cold on a 30-minute dive when you're using an 80 cubic foot tank, just think about how cold you're going to be if you start using a 120, a 117, or a 133. In addition to that, you have to pay attention to your no decompression limit. So these big tanks are usually used by people that are nitrox trained, and of course people who need to stay down there. Now, who would that be? That could be folks that are big into spearfishing, folks that are big into checking out wrecks, artifact diving, things along those lines, hull inspections or whatever it may be in a commercial application. So let's talk about these three tanks. Now, what I've got in front of me here is I've got a Stihl 120, that's 120 cubic feet. I've got a 117 cubic foot tank right here, and this is a 133. Now, it's quite interesting because if you look at this tank is 24 inches tall, this tank is 26 inches tall, and this tank is 29 inches tall. So if you're one of those people that's maybe challenged, your torso is short, then if you're looking for a tank with more cubic feet of air, then you're probably not going to want to use one like this 120 that's so tall and long. You're probably going to want to go with something shorter like a 117. Now, in addition to that, there's some differences in the diameter of these tanks. The 120, this is a 7¼ inch diameter tank. Both of these are 8-inch diameter tanks. So you're going to have to do some adjusting with your BCD to accommodate these tanks. They will work, but just remember, you're going to have a larger tank on your back and you're going to feel that weight. It's going to make you want to roll from side to side. So there's going to be a difference in that. Let's talk about the specs on these tanks. Let's start right here with the high pressure 117. Like I said before, this is an 8-inch diameter tank. This tank, when it's full, weighs negative 9.12 pounds. So you'll be negatively buoyant, a little bit over 9 pounds. Now, as we go to these larger tanks, this is what you're going to notice. As they begin to get empty, these tanks will become positively buoyant, whereas if you remember in the other video when we were talking about the compact 80 and the high pressure 100, those remain negatively buoyant, full or near empty. So this tank, the 117 is about a half a pound, 0.6 positively buoyant. So to give you some understanding, this tank weighs 38.9 pounds. Let's jump over here to the 133. Now the 133, it is a little bit over 9.08 pounds negatively buoyant as it is empty. It's about 1.45 positively buoyant. And again, this is an 8-inch diameter tank, and this tank weighs 42.7 pounds. We jump over here on our high pressure 120, and our high pressure 120, negatively buoyant full, 8.82 pounds. Once it gets empty, we're talking 0.6 positively buoyant. And again, this is a 7.5-inch diameter tank, and this tank weighs 39.2 pounds. What we want to make sure you understand when you start using these larger tanks, in comparison to a standard 80 cubic foot tank that the mass majority of folks dive with is that these tanks are going to put you at and very easily over your no decompression limit, and I'm going to use 60 feet as an example. So on air, a 60-foot dive, no decompression limit, depending on the table you use in the computer, is approximately 57 minutes. Now, if you're diving on an 80, the average is probably 40, 45 minutes on that 80 cubic foot tank. Depends on the person, of course, but we're just going to say that's an average. Now, you jump up to this 120, this is 40% more air. 133, you're talking 60% more air. So if you take those numbers and that standard 40, and then you bump it up just by 40%, you're now over your decompression limit using air. So if you're going to be using these tanks, folks, make sure you're Nitrox certified, okay? Nitrox 32 at 60 feet is, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's 90 minutes. And Nitrox 36 is 115 minutes. So that gives you plenty of room on your no decompression limit to use these larger tanks and to make your dives benefit from being down there. So if we think about 40% longer dive and you're doing a 45-minute dive, now you're doing, you know, an hour and 10 minutes or so with your dives. If you make 2 dives, that's like getting a free dive. So make sure that when you start taking these things into consideration and you start using these tanks, don't put yourself in a difficult situation by not paying attention to your no decompression limit. I will say this, larger tanks are a great value. Just like in the other video where we showed you the Compact 80 and its benefits, and that high pressure 100 and its benefits. And if you haven't watched that, jump over and watch it. You're going to get a lot of benefit from seeing that video. And of course, these tanks, like I said, are a great value, especially if you're in those particular realms of diving like artifact or spearfishing. You're going to get a huge benefit out of going with these steel tanks, not only from the buoyancy, but the time you're able to spend down there. So again, I'm Bob Collins for Diver Supply. Thanks for watching our video on larger tanks. We'll see you again soon. Dive safe.